The last class, we just did an overview of the syllabus for B2B, and then also, got to hear your understanding of how much you know of B2B, and then, how different it is from the B2C market. So today we will jumpstart into our class, go a little more further to understand, conceptually become very clear about what is B2B and what is B2C. And then we can go ahead, because the later classes we will be doing a few case studies. So we should be able to be very aware of the key difference between B2B and B2C. Very interestingly, this market operates at a very different level, unlike the way we understand. B2C is very familiar because all of us are B2C consumers. So you have your own first-hand experience, right? So you have your own first-hand experience when you go to a store or when you buy almost anything for yourself. Yeah, so when you buy anything for yourself, you have a first-hand experience, but B2B operates very, very differently. And then some of you were able to highlight those highlights and then tell us what's the key difference and how differently this operates, right? So let's get started. So I will share my screen. So we will go, a lot of examples also are there. So we will look at them one by one. Okay, you're able to see the screen?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
Yes.
that's business to business marketing. Okay, so this is a very major component of the marketing discipline and practice as such. Okay, so marketing, we need to understand marketing before we understand what is B2B and what is B2C. So very often, even with students who specialize in marketing, uh, there is a very skewed or a very narrow understanding of marketing. Very often, students of marketing, right, and also those who specialize in marketing have this understanding that marketing is about selling after the finished commodity is manufactured in the factory or the service is ready to be sold or to be given to a customer. So very often we confuse marketing to be a part of the distribution activity, right? So very often it is said we need to market the product. When we say market the product, the very narrow understanding is that we are only selling it, right? So, but marketing does not include just selling. Selling is just one component of it. Or when the finished commodity is manufactured in the factories and it is made available to consumers in different markets, so that is just one part of marketing. Whereas if you go back to the original understanding of marketing, it is a process of conceiving the product, which means we are talking about idea generation, the whole process of planning and executing. So even before a product, even before you know what product you're going to be manufacturing, right? So this whole idea of what product to manufacture, which we generally understand marketing as idea generation, right? So right from that stage of idea generation, so where you generate an idea, right? So you understand, okay, these are the needs and wants of consumers, and these are the kind of ideas that we have based on what feedback you are receiving from consumers, or you do a lot of new product development exercises, and then you are able to arrive at something very nice as an idea, and then you very nice as an insight, and then you decide if we make this into a product or a service, it's going to be very, very beneficial for us. So that's where we start, right? So the whole idea starts with the conception of the product, conceiving the idea, right? So from the idea generation, you go through the whole process of the new product development. Then you come into pricing. Marketing includes pricing. Marketing includes all those pre-launch promotional activity that you undertake, and also post-launch promotional activities that you undertake, which includes advertising, publicity, sales promotion, personal selling, right? And it also includes, after you sell the commodity, right, all the relationships that you maintain with your existing consumers. Once a consumer continues to be a regular consumer, because he or she is always going to come back for some sort of assistance, always is going to come back seeking warranty or guarantee or repair or malfunctioning, or to claim for any of those additional services that you have offered freely. So there is a relationship that is established. And they can also become repeat buyers. So if they bought a product and they're very happy with your product, your service, your company, and your brand, they can always come back as repeat consumers, right? So marketing basically looks at this whole aspect of how this entire 4Ps is conceived, and then how we go about satisfying individual as well as organizational objectives. So here the individual objective that we're talking about are the final consumers. It could be the B2B or the B2C. Both these groups who are buyers are satisfied because they're getting a product or a service that matches their needs and requirements. And then the organizational objective, which is the seller, that is the organization that is selling the product, also realizes its organizational objectives. So please remember, marketing is very, very all encompassing. It is 360-degree in its entire attitude and approach. It begins with conceiving an idea, and it continues with this whole aspect of trying to maintain relationship with consumers and then trying to see how we can continue to serve them in a much better manner. Now, going further, so we are specifically looking at business marketing. So how does this whole strategy of marketing, right from the idea conception stage till the time you maintain relationship with consumers, how this complete end to end operates in the business marketing context, right? So I'm going to put out these 5 questions over here, right? So I want you to tell me whether it's a B2B transaction or whether it's a B2C transaction, right? So I'm going to call out names. So you'll have to tell me which one do you think is the right answer. Okay, let's say I'll go to Rachna. Yeah, Rachna, can you hear me? Rachna?
Hello, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly. Okay. The first question is for you. You buy a
Is
gear
it a
to fix the first one, yeah. So is it a consumer transaction or a
Yes.
business transaction? So the first question is for you. You buy a gear to fix your mountain bike. You buy a gear to fix a mountain bike. Is it a B2B transaction,
It's
or a business transaction?
it's a business transaction, sir.
Why do you think so?
You buy a gear to fix your mountain bike. Yeah, sir, it is a consumer transaction, sir. Finally, consumer is going to buy to fix a gear to his own bike. So he's consuming the satisfaction, sir. He's buying product for him, sir.
Okay. But in the beginning, you said it's a business transaction.
Yes, sir.
So who's the user of this mountain bike? Who do you think is the user of the mountain bike? A B2B or a B2C consumer?
B2C, sir.
B2C. Okay. So the mountain bike is bought by an individual consumer and he's using it. So he's buying an additional gear to fix it for his mountain bike.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good answer. Okay, I'll go to Gunjan. The second question is for you. Gunjan Niyog.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Second question is for you, Gunjan.
Okay, sir.
So this company Ford Automobiles, buys the same gear to fix a machine.
Sir, it's B2B, sir.
Okay, so you're convinced about it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, how do you say it's a B2B?
Sir, sir, because sir, to fix a sir, the proper gear, sir, is those gear is not particularly bought by the customers. Only, sir, the company or particular company buys it from
Okay.
a company, sir.
So here we're talking about Ford. Ford
Yes,
is
sir.
buyer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to Eben Benny. Eben Benny, can you hear me? Eben?
Hello, sir.
Yes, Eben, after you
Yes.
give me the answer, you need to rename your device. First
Okay, sir.
register
Okay,
number,
sir.
underscore, and then your name. Okay. So right now I only
Okay,
see
okay,
your
sir.
name.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Third question is for you. Xerox buys soft drinks for its cafeterias.
Sir, it's a B2B
Okay.
transaction, sir.
Why do you think, Eben?
What, sir?
Why do you think it's a B2B?
Sir, because Xerox is a big company which buys soft drinks for its cafeteria, so it's a business transaction.
Okay. Okay. So because the soft drink, the canteen is operating within the premises of Xerox. So
Yes,
Xerox as
sir.
a company is buying soft drinks to sell it to the consumers. The consumers could be the employees of Xerox. Okay. So yeah, that's clear. That's a good answer. That's a business transaction. Okay. I'll go to. Let us check whether this guy in the gym will be alert. Okay, Shashi Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you start a landscaping business and purchase a lawnmower.
I muted myself.
Yes. Yes,
I
sir.
muted myself.
You start a landscaping business and purchase a
Yeah.
lawnmower.
Land Rover. Sir, it's a B2C, sir.
Okay, why do you think so?
Because I'm a consumer.
Read the question properly, Shashi. You are starting a landscaping business and purchase a lawnmower.
What is a Xerox? I know.
Shashi,
Hello?
you start a landscaping business and you purchase a lawnmower. Okay. Robbie Matthew. No, there are some people in the waiting room. Okay. Okay. I have so put out an answer. Yeah, the audio in the gym is loud. Okay, I'll check with Jade. Jade, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Jade, the fourth question is for you.
The lawnmower question, sir.
Yeah, you start a landscaping business and purchase a lawnmower.
So I think that it's a B2B if he's using the lawnmower for his business.
Okay.
But it's not mentioned, so he could even be buying it for his personal use, then it'll be B2C.
Okay, so if you have a garden to mow and you're buying it for your own purpose at home, then that's B2C. But if you're
Yes, sir.
starting a landscaping business where you're going to be offering the services to several other institutions, organizations that want the landscaping service to be done, then it is B2B. All right, very
Yes,
good.
sir.
So last question. The United States buys anything. Okay, Robbie Matthew. If the US government buys, Robbie, can you hear me?
Sir, it's a
Yes, Robbie. What do you think is the last answer? The US government buys anything.
sir. I didn't get anything, sir. I was disconnected in between.
No.
Only I joined,
Okay,
sir.
are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
The last question. So is it a consumer transaction or a business transaction? US government buys anything.
Sir, it's a business transaction.
Okay, it's a business transaction. All right. It's a good answer. Okay. So because the government is buying, this is called institutional buying. When the government buys, the government is an institution, so it buys for its own purposes. Like for example, let's say the state of Karnataka, very often every year they procure notebooks, they they procure tabs, they procure bicycles, right? The government buys and then, distributes it to the government school children. They get free books, they get free uniforms, they get free bicycles, and some places for higher secondary school at 10th students, for 10th students they get a laptop, or for PUC they get a laptop. So here the government buys from different vendors, right? So it's acting as a buyer, right, like a business, B2B, and then it distributes it to the B2C, who are the students. So very specifically, it can also be called, like what Kevin has put it on the chat, it says it's a B2C, it's business to government, right? So generally we classify all of them as institutions. Okay, so good answer. So all of you have got it right. Okay, let's go further. Okay, so business to business marketing, very often also called as B2B and also called industrial marketing, right? Because most of the products that are purchased are for industrial purposes, right? So that's why it's also called industrial marketing. It's also called B2B. Products and services are sold to other businesses rather than to the general public. Okay, so that's an understanding all of us are aware. So where one business is buying for its own business purposes, it can directly sell it to a consumer without making any changes, like the case of Xerox. In that example of Xerox is buying soft drinks, so it can buy soft drinks from Pepsi or Coke at a bulk for selling it in its cafeteria. That's B2B, and the soft drink does not go any sort of additional value addition. The soft drink is, Xerox is not going to do anything for the soft drink, so it's going to be bought, it's going to be stocked and stored in cold storage, and then it is sold in the cafeteria. So it could be like that, where you don't make any change on the product that you purchase. Whereas in majority of the cases, when a business buys, it often buys as intermediaries, right? So intermediaries could be raw materials, right? So when you buy a sheet of steel, or you buy tons of steel, or you buy tons of aluminum, or you buy a liquid lubricant, to be used for running your machinery, right? Or you buy computers and softwares for operating your business. So all of that cannot directly be sold to a consumer. All of that is used as a part of the facilitation process. All of that is used as part of the production process, whereby using the software, using these computers, using those lubricants that operate a machine, and then there's tons of steel and aluminum that runs into your machinery, comes out of finished commodities, and then only a finished commodity is sold to a consumer, right? So the products may be as familiar as office supplies and coffee, or as complex as computer systems and aircraft. So it could be as complex as that, because you get different intermediaries. A factory system, right? So you've studied production and operations. So we understand very clearly how in the factory system, there is no one particular vendor who sells one type of commodity, right? So they sell different types of intermediate raw materials and input factors. So in the factory, all these input factors and raw materials are converted, right? It goes through the transformation process. It goes through value addition at every stage. And then you'll see a final or a finished commodity coming out at the end of the production system, right? So it can be as simple as an office supply, or it can be that soft drink that Xerox purchased, or it could be just that lawnmower that was purchased, right? And it can be as complex as manufacturing a very complex product, right? It could be a manufacturing of an automobile, manufacture of an aircraft, right? Or construction of a building. So it could be anything of that sort. But that's B2B. So businesses use these products and services as components of their own goods for sale to support their operations or to resell. There are three things that happens in the B2B transaction. One is they buy it so that they are able to support their own sale, right? So that's there. Like for example, those office supplies that we spoke about, or computers that we purchase, that the organization purchases, or the software that they use is only to support their sale. It only to create that efficiency and effectiveness in the way you manufacture and operate and smoothly run your business. Second is to support their operations. So it could be helping them to manufacture these goods so that they are able to convert these raw materials into finished commodities, or it could be just to resell, buying and then selling. Most distribution companies do that. Like for example, a wholesaler is a very good example of a B2B wholesaler, right? So what does the wholesaler do? Wholesaler buys from a manufacturer and stocks it, and then in turn only resells to another retailer. Retailer further resells to the final consumer. So the key players in the field include manufacturers, right? So manufacturers are the B2B buyers generally, because they are the ones who are going to be converting the raw materials or the input factors into finished commodities. And then the finished commodity is further sold to the wholesaler. Wholesaler is a bulk buyer, right? And a bulk buyer and a bulk distributor. So they buy a large quantity in bulk from the manufacturers, they stock it, and then they further break down that quantity to retailers into smaller quantities, and they further resell. That's why it's called retail. So it's resold. So wholesalers will sell it to the retailer. So that is a B2B transaction. So manufacturer to the wholesaler is B2B. Wholesaler to the retailer is B2B. Retailer to the consumer. If you're the final consumer, you go to a Food World, or you go to a Spencer's, or you go to a D-Mart, or you go to any one of those stores, the Kirana stores, and you buy that commodity, it is a B2C transaction. So it could also be sold to farms, right? Farm equipments, like for example, all those agricultural equipments that we talk about. So that could also be a part of B2B. Or construction firms, builders, large construction companies that put up huge apartments, or they go through this entire process of developing a layout and so on. So even they are into the B2B. So theirs is a commercial transaction, right? So when they are into commercial transaction, obviously all those activities are commercially understood to be B2B. Or it could be service industries. It could be the railways, for example, right? Or it could be the banks, or it could be educational institutions, or it could be hospitals that buy a lot of these equipments, that buy a lot of these, machinery, equipment, support systems, right? Or it could be the government. So government as a buyer, right? Or it could be NGOs, not non-profit organizations who do not seek to make a profit out of their transaction. So an NGO could also be buying for running their operations, or for distributing it among the needy community in their neighborhood or in society. So almost anybody. So very often when we look at B2B, we generally confine ourselves only to a factory. We say only a factory buys these input factors. We consider that to be B2B, but B2B is a little more comprehensive in understanding. It's a little more broader in understanding. So it just does not include factories alone. It includes farmers, farm agencies. It includes cooperatives. It includes banks. It includes educational institutions. It includes large-scale builders. It includes non-profit organizations. So all of them also do come into the gamut of B2B if they are buying for their own furthering of organizational objectives and for running their operations. So that's where we need to get this understanding of how B2B is all encompassing. So B2C, on the other hand, right, refers to businesses who sell solutions. So it's a final solution. So you have a need, you have a want, so that product that you're going to be buying has that utility that's going to satisfy your need and your want. So you buy a product, you consume it, you automatically are relieved of that particular need or want, which means you are satisfied, right? So businesses who sell solutions, services, or products directly to consumers, right? So their target customers who are individual consumers who intend to buy what they offer for personal purposes. So most of the B2C buying happens for individual use. For individual use or for the use of the household, which means for buying goods and services that are going to be consumed by your family members. So it's for a private purpose. So this is B2C. In order to encourage sales, B2C marketers focus all their marketing efforts on the desires, needs, and issues facing an average product user. So that is how B2C products are conceived, and how they are planned, and how it goes through the new product development process, and then finally those products are put out for sale to final consumers. So how do they do this? Right? Organizations are always very keenly looking at the changing needs of consumers. They want to know what's your need. What is that is right now a deprivation? What is a need? A need is a physiological or a psychological deprivation. Physically, you are deprived of something, or psychologically, you're deprived of something. So whatever is that good or service that you are looking for, so that you can buy it and use it and physiologically and psychologically feel good about it, is the satisfaction of your need. So that is where marketing, that's where organizations employ their marketing research. They're constantly doing marketing research to find out what is the changing need of consumers, right? And then accordingly, they are devising, right? So in the COVID situation, one new product category or one new idea that helped organizations to come up with a new product category was the work from home furniture, right? So, the COVID brought about this whole instance where employees had to be confined to their homes due to safety concerns. So they were not able to concentrate much at home, just like how many of you are also sitting at home, but you're unable to concentrate much on what's happening because that complete focus is not there, because you're not in that atmosphere, or you don't have proper seating arrangement or furnitures, which is very typical of a classroom. So in order to help, the employees who are working from home, organizations devised something called a work from home furniture, right? So work from home furniture, it began with a proper desk or a table with all the essentials that you require, just like how you would have it in your um, in your uh, in your office. And also some of them went to the extent of also devising a certain partition. So it's like a cubicle that you create. It's like a dismantleable kind of a cubicle that you create, so that you're confined and you're sitting within the cubicle, and rest of the activity, household activities, taking place around you. So you don't get distracted much about it. So that's a good idea. That's a new thing that came up. So that was because the need was seen, that people needed to concentrate on their work, and so they needed a very private space within the informal setup of a home, right? So that's how organizations are constantly looking for needs. They always want to find out what is that physiological deprivation, what's the psychological deprivation that you have, what is that you desire. People have disposable income. They want to know different ways by which they can spend money, desires, or issues, some product or service that you're using right now and you're dissatisfied. You feel that the product is not 100% catering to the satisfaction of your need or your demand. So that is where there is scope to see, can we make a better product, right? Or can we find out what is that's lacking in this product, which can be filled up by the new product that we can bring into the market. So in B2C, we are constantly looking out for changing needs of consumers. Changing needs of consumers, changing desires of consumers, issues that a consumer faces. And all those ideas are going to come back, are going to go back, and we go through the new product development process. And then we finally come out with a finished commodity. And then we use the entire B2B channel to finally take it to the retailer, and then make sure that the good is available to the B2C consumer. And he or she goes to the market to buy what they want, which is going to eventually satisfy their need, want, and desire. So that's where B2C operates very, very differently. So a B2C business can be a beauty or a cosmetic company. It could be a real estate agency that sells homes to families, a car dealership, right? A retail store, a healthcare practice, music streaming service, and a lot more in between, right? So it could include all of these kind of companies. So let's look at this example of Omron Healthcare. So sometimes what happens is there could be organizations which are into both, right? So there could be organizations or institutions that could be, making products for B2B and also making products for B2C. So when they make products for B2B, the entire attitude, orientation, strategy of marketing is completely different. And when they sell products to the B2C market, the attitude, orientation, strategy, and the entire marketing process is different. So the same company could be wearing two different, kind of hats, and then operating differently in the B2B and very differently in the B2C market. So this is an example of Omron Healthcare Incorporation, right? So the health tech company, so this is a health technology company, sells several kinds of blood pressure monitors, each specially designed for a different audience, right? Omron Health Guide, for instance, is an advanced smartwatch coupled with a mobile app and Alexa skills that is marketed directly to consumers who want to take their blood pressure on the go. Okay, so this is the Omron Health Guide, is a smartwatch that Omron manufacturers. So this is directly sold to consumers, and it has these advanced features where it's connected to a mobile app, and it's got these Alexa features where automatically if your blood pressure is shooting up, you get a beep or a signal and tells you to monitor your blood pressure or take some medication accordingly. Omron also sells spigometers to hospitals, at home care agencies and other healthcare institutions. So these are advanced devices that are sold to hospitals where monitoring of health can be done on a larger scale. So that's what Omron does. Omron has products like a smartwatch, which is very simple an application. It is sold, and it has very minimal features, and it's sold to B2C consumers. On the other hand, it has advanced versions of health monitor devices, like a CT scan machine or a huge device that gives you multiple reports, or it can take more of data inputs of a particular patient, and then is also able to give you a lot of results instantly. So these are large health monitoring diagnostic devices that you see in diagnostic centers or in big hospitals. So Omron also does that. So on one side, it sells to B2C, to ultimate consumers. On the other side, it also has large devices that are for institutional selling or for B2B selling. So B2B marketing is what it sounds like. It involves a business whose primary customer is another business rather than an everyday consumer. So it's an intermediary, another business, which is going to be buying these raw materials or input factors and is going to use that in conversion of a process. And because they market their products, services, or solutions exclusively to other businesses, B2B marketers direct all of their marketing efforts towards persons or teams who make purchase decisions on behalf of their companies. Now, this is a very interesting part you need to know, because this dimension is what's very focused in the marketing effort. In the B2C, right? So we talk about buying roles, right? So if you go back and jog your memory on the buying roles, right? So can you give me a little conceptual understanding of the buying roles? Okay, let me go to Jebin. Jebin, tell me the buying roles in marketing, B2C. Jebin?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Jebin. Do you remember the buying roles?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Jebin. Go ahead. You remember the buying roles? What are the buying roles? Okay, Vishnu, can you attempt this answer?
Sir, there are buyers, then gatekeepers.
Okay.
I know only the two.
Only two roles, you know. Okay, so there's a buyer and there is a gatekeeper. Okay, just tell me the difference between these two. Who's a buyer, who's a gatekeeper?
So buyer is the person who
Who's
buys.
actually buying? Okay, buyer is the person who actually buys. Okay.
And gatekeeper is actually a person who doesn't have much involvement in all this buying decisions.
Okay, but why is he or she a gatekeeper? I mean, if it's not so important, why are they, first of all, having a role?
So I'm not sure of.
Not sure. Okay. So anyway, buyer is one role, and then gatekeeper is another role. Okay. Let's go to somebody else now. Okay. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin Ronaldo. Kevin, what are the buying roles?
Sir, initiator, the person who suggests what we have to buy.
Okay.
Then there's influencer, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, so you have the initiator, and then you have the influencer. Okay, Justin Matthew, give me the third one. Initiator, influencer. Who's the third? in that order. Yeah, Justin? Who's the third in the order? You have initiator, you have influencer. Who's the third person in the order? I can't hear you. So if your audio has a problem, just put in, okay. Jebin R is written decider. Okay. So Justin, you can type the answer. Okay, you can type the answer. So we have the initiator, we have the influencer, and then we have the decider. Okay, very good. Justin, Matthew, Joanna, Justin and Jebin have given me the third role. That's the decider. Fourth, Vishnu has told buyer, and so has Joanna. Purchaser. Purchaser is the buyer. Shashi also has written buyer. And then the last one is who's the last role?
User.
Yeah.
User, sir.
The user. Okay, now some of you have written gatekeeper. What is the role of the gatekeeper and where do you see? Do you see that in B2B and B2C? What is that role? So all that you've listed is right. You have the initiator, you have the influencer, you have the decider, you have the buyer, and then you have the user. Good. Gunjan and Cynthia have given me the answer for the last one. So that's the user. Now, who's this gatekeeper? Who's the gatekeeper? Who's the gatekeeper? Harish? Who do you think is the gatekeeper? Yes, Harish?
Sir, I think the decision makers and the influencers are the gatekeepers.
Okay, the decision makers and the influencers are the gate. Where do you see them? Do you see them in B2B or B2C or in both?
I think both, sir.
You see them in both. Okay. Cynthia?
Yes, sir.
B2B, where do you see them? I'm sorry, gatekeepers, where do you see them? B2B, B2C or in both?
In both, sir.
In both you have a gatekeeper. Okay. Sanat? Gatekeeper, where do you see the gatekeeper? B2B, B2C or in both? Sanat? Sanat K. Sanat has written both, sir. Okay. Let's go to Sharat. Sharat Babu. Sharat. B2B, B2C or in both? Sir, both. Okay. Navinan. Navinan also has written both. Okay. I go to Lijo. B2B, B2C or in both? Lijo.
Yes, sir.
Lijo, what do you think? Gatekeeper, B2B, B2C or in both?
It is in both, sir. It's
In
like
both.
a person who takes order.
Takes the order. Okay. Nandish?
Sir, both, sir.
Both. Rijo?
Sir, both.
Rohan?
Yes, sir.
What do you
Sir, I think B2C, sir.
B2C. Okay. Samuel?
Sir, even I also think it's B2C.
No, you think it's B2B?
Sir, at this point, I'm not sure, sir, but I usually have a plan that it's B2C.
It's B2C. Okay. So this is, okay, let's go back to our discussion. Okay, now the buying roles are very important. Okay, because every marketing effort will have to be targeted at the right person, the person who's playing that right role. Right. So so that's where we go to the buying role. That's why I wanted you to go back and recollect what you know of the buying roles. Okay. In the B2C, right? So it could be an individual or it could be a household purchase. In the B2C, the buying roles are initiator, influencer, decider, buyer, and user. There are just 5 roles in the B2C: initiator, influencer, decider, buyer, user. Okay. Now the initiator is the one who, as one of you said, right, initiates the idea, comes up or helps others understand that there is a need, or there is something that is deprived, that they are deprived of right now. So if we buy that particular product or service, then things could be a lot more easy, or we could overcome that pain problem or difficulty that we are facing right now. So they come up with the idea to have this product, to purchase this product as a solution. Initiator. Influencer is somebody who, connects with the idea of the initiator and says, yes, yes, wonderful, yeah, I mean, even I was thinking about the same thing. Yes, that will definitely help us to overcome or ease the problem, ease the difficulty, and also helps us to do things a lot more faster and quicker. Okay, so influencer. Now, very importantly, it's the decider. The initiator and the influencer could only play those 2 roles, but they are not the deciders, because the decider is always the one who's got the money. The decider is the one who's got the money. So if it's a household that you're looking at right now, so if there's any suggestion that you make in your house and say, why don't we buy this particular thing, and it's going to be good and useful. Like, for example, all of you are sitting at home and now you're unable to go outside to theaters. So one of you in your family, one of the children could suggest that why don't we buy this, very big television. Let's buy a 55-inch television, flat screen, because now almost everything can be done. So it's good, and with services as Amazon and Netflix and so on. So we need a bigger television. So one of you could initiate and say, now a lot of things we don't need to go and avail these services outside. So we can actually enjoy these services at home. So let's upgrade our television. So let's go in for an exchange, sell the old one and get a new one. Okay, one of you could initiate that. Your sister, your brother, or somebody at home could also back you up. They can tell, yeah, wonderful, yeah, what he or she is saying is fantastic, so let's go ahead. Right? But ultimately, the decider is going to be a father, because only he's got to decide, because it's his money, and he has to see whether there's enough money for buying this particular television set. So your dad becomes the decider, because he's got the money. Without the decider, the initiator, the influencer cannot do anything. You can only initiate, you can only influence, but you cannot ultimately move the purchase. Then once the decider says, okay, fine, I think we can go ahead, and then tells, go ahead and look for some nice brands or nice features that are there. So all of you could get into the homework, and then you could Google, or you can go to different showrooms, take a look at different brands, different products, features, all of that. You could come back. So there is evaluation of alternatives that you do, right? And then you can decide and say, among all of that we've seen so far, among the evaluation of alternatives, this is the one that's the best. And then the purchaser could be anybody, right? Or the whole family can go to the showroom and then be involved in the purchase process. And the users obviously are going to be all of you. All of you at home who are going to be watching this are going to be the users. So here, coming back to this point, and because they market their products, services, and solutions exclusively to other businesses. So here, when we talk about the B2C, if we are going to be targeting, right, if we are going to be targeting selling a product to a B2C consumer, then we need to target the decider, or we need to target the initiator or the influencer, because they are the ones who can actually motivate and convince the decider. So target the initiators, target the influencers, and target the decider. Most of these electronic gadgets that you see at home, right? So the deciders or fathers themselves don't have much of knowledge about all of this. It could be smartphones, or it could be television sets, it could be computers, it could be anything for that matter. So they may not be so very well versed in knowing what's the latest that's there. Whereas the initiator and the influencers, the children at home, the youngsters are much more aware of all of these trends and products and services and developments that are there in the market. So they could probably say, yeah, this would be good, and then explain that to the decider, convince the decider, and then make the purchase. So in B2C, very often marketers or salesmen and women will target the initiator, influencers, and then target the decider also, if sometimes the decider is also playing the role of the initiator and the influencer. Whereas in the B2B, though we say it's a business buying, or we say organizational buying, not all of them in the organization is involved in the purchase process, or not everybody in the management is involved in the purchase process. You will not have all the board of directors coming into the purchase process. No, not at all. So in the B2B, marketers direct their marketing efforts towards persons or teams who make purchase decisions on behalf of their companies. So this is where we have the role, the organized role of the department called the purchase department. We call this as the purchase department, or we call this as the procurement department. The purchase or the procurement department is the department which is given the sole responsibility to make purchases on behalf of every department in the organization, right? So in the beginning of the year, or whenever the need arises, different departments will have to send in their requisition of the products, items, equipments that they want in their respective quantity, and also at the time when they want it. Those requisition orders or requisition slips will have to be sent to the procurement department, right? Like for example, if there's a production department will not do the purchase on its own. Production department will have to send in their requisition with the set of items, a number of quantity, and at what time duration would they want it, and then send it to the procurement department. So you tell what you want, and the procurement department, the purchase department, will take the decision on your behalf. So they will go through that entire process of inviting vendors and asking for demonstrations, looking at all the features and all the technical aspects of it. And then they do a vendor analysis, and then they pick a vendor, and then they ask for samples. So that's the process. That's what the procurement department will do, right? So all the marketing efforts are targeted at the procurement or the purchase department. So sometimes it could be in smaller organizations, it could just be one individual or two individuals who can make that decision. In large organizations, there is a team, right? The team is what we call as the DMU. It's called the decision-making unit. So the decision-making unit comprises of different individuals who are put into that team to help the organization or to help the procurement department to go ahead with purchases. So all decisions are taken by the DMU. Right? And within the DMU also there is a hierarchy, right? So we have something called sanctioning limit. So you have a junior, you have a senior, and you have a super senior, and then you have the final head. So there are 4 levels in the DMU. Just for an example, there can be multiple levels as well. So at the lower level, if there are purchases below 5,000 rupees, if there are invoices that come and then you have to, or requisition orders that come and you have to make purchases where the bill is amounting to 5,000. So the junior officer can sanction those. Any bill limit or any sanction, any amount that is to be sanctioned is up to a limit of 5,000. The junior can do it. But if that amount goes up to around 6,000 rupees, if you have to sanction, if that purchase of that equipment is around 6,000 rupees, right? It is beyond your sanctioning capacity. So which means it's 6,000 rupees, it's higher than your 5,000. So that's where you have to seek, you have to go to your higher up and ask that person. So now that this is a 6,000 rupee, purchase, so get the approval of the higher authority. Okay, so this is how higher volume purchases or high value purchases or high monetary unit purchases are scrutinized in the decision-making unit. So this is to ensure that there is more transparency and there is more responsibility that is given to the people at the higher edge, and then different individuals are coordinating the whole purchase efforts. So if it's the B2B, so marketers will often tend to direct all their marketing efforts towards those key people in the purchase department or the procurement department or target at the decision-making unit. In the B2B is where you will see the role of a gatekeeper. In the B2C, we don't have a gatekeeper. It's only in the B2B we have a gatekeeper. Now, who is the gatekeeper? No, gatekeeper is a very crucial person in that entire process, the buying roles, the crucial person, because B2B is that person who has that sanctioning ability or who has the power to recommend certain vendors or to recommend a certain company, or will be that key person through whom you can get in touch with the procurement or the purchase department. So this key person in the organization who controls the vendors coming inside or vendors going outside, all of that is called the gatekeeper. A very, very important person that you will see. It's a very key role that you play. So which means within the decision making unit, there could be one individual who has the trust of all the others in the DMU, and who is a very influential person in that entire decision making unit or in the organization. And if that person says okay, the vendor gets a chance, like that. Nobody says no to it. So that's where the gatekeeper is going to operate. So most B2B operators will try to find out, will through their own sources, they will find out who is the gatekeeper in this organization, and who is that particular person who's so influential in the DMU, who can help these vendors to come into the organization in the first place itself can be decided. And then they target all their marketing efforts, and then they will try to, appeal to the gatekeeper, or convince, or try to, make the gatekeeper or the purchase, the key decision making influencer, quite happy through their marketing efforts. Sometimes they give gifts, or sometimes they give a lot of goodies just to convince and influence. So that's how it operates in the B2B. So it's a very, very critical aspect. So unless and until you know the members in the DMU, unless and until you know the key influencer, all the marketing efforts that you put will not be in the right place and in the right direction. So it's very important that you need to do this. Like, for example, a very simple insights could be when you go to hospitals, when you go to several hospitals, especially during the day, around 11, 12 or 1, you will see a lot of people like marketing executives holding a big bag, and then they will be waiting. And when they're sitting in the same row as you are sitting, they don't look like patients, right? So we call them as the medical reps. So what are these medical reps doing? Medical representatives. Medical representatives are executives. They are salesmen or women who are representing pharmaceutical companies. And they are trying to target or they are trying to meet the doctors so that they can give them some samples of the products that they are selling, or give them or convince them about their company's products being better than rest of the other pharmaceutical or medicine companies, and want these doctors to recommend these medicines, or recommend these tablets, or recommend these treatments to patients who come and meet them. So very often you see whatever the doctor writes is the brand that you often go to a medical store, or you go to a chemist, or you go to a hospital store, and then you buy, right? There are no two ways of looking at it. So the doctor is the key influencer. I mean, he plays the gatekeeper, because once he decides that, and if he's convinced that this particular company's medicine is good, so he writes the name of the company as well. He writes the medicine, and then the name of the company, right? So that name itself is enough. Otherwise, it's called generic medicines. So very rarely do you find doctors writing generic medicines. So which means generic medicines are when you take that generic prescription and you go to a medical store, he can give you any medicine from any brand, because all of them will have the same composition as the generic. But very rarely do doctors write generic medicine. They will write a specific medicine of a particular pharma brand. So that's how they try to increase the sales of certain products. So that's how it works. So most in those cases, you will see, how many of these instances will work. So B2B is very complex, and it has its own set of ways of looking and making those decisions. Right. So these are a few examples. So with this, we will conclude for today's class. So here are some good examples. So to give you a little more understanding, so that you know what exactly and how specifically B2B operates. So a medtech company that sells software as a medical device solution to healthcare organizations. Right. Today, if you see in the hospitals also, they use a lot of customized software that helps them to manage billing processes, that helps them to manage patient queuing processes, that also helps appointments, gives you appointments, and then you get a message on your phone Or for example, if you're given some samples for testing and if your reports have arrived, then automatically you get a message saying that your report has arrived, or automatically it gets generated. The results are generated to your email. So all of this is happening because we've used a software that manages the entire healthcare management system. So if you're a med tech company that sells software to a medical device or to a hospital for better management of hospital services, then that's a good example of a B2B. Second example could be of a digital agency that produces search engine operations or CMS or email marketing tools for marketers. So that, these are those digital marketing companies that help you to promote your business, that helps you to send those emails, multiple emails to different targets of consumers based on the databases that you have, so that it helps you to have a better reach or a wider reach, so that more and more potential consumers in the market will get to know of your product or your marketing efforts. So a digital agency is helping a small startup or is helping a company to have a greater mileage with the market in the B2C. Thirdly, it could be a manufacturer that sells products directly to dental practices and hospitals. So a manufacturer, without the use of an intermediary, is directly selling it to hospitals or to dental hospitals and so on. Lastly, you could have a startup that specializes in table management software, a startup that could possibly help in managing many of these activities that they have, right? So it helps them to manage their business, helps them to manage their functional operations, and connects the business and the services with the larger market that's available outside, right? Right, so those are those 4 examples that we have for B2B. So with that, we have a very clear understanding of how B2B operates. So when we come back in the next class, we will go into the characteristics that differentiate. So that's where we will see how the market and the industry operates when it comes to a B2B. And then we will go a little more deeper into it, and before we start analyzing cases, at the end of this conceptual understanding. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of today's class. Any questions? Anybody has anything that you want to ask me before we call it a close? Any questions? So you understood the concept?
Sir?
Yeah, I've been.
So what kind of transaction occurs when the government purchases defense materials? Like when India purchased Rafale aircrafts, what kind of transaction occurs there?
So if you're very familiar with the Rafale business, so this was a B2G, as you say, business to government, right? So it was purchasing to strengthen India's defense forces. Correct.
Yeah.
So there was
Yes,
Rafale was a company that a French company that was selling these aircrafts, and then there are 2 ways that it can happen. One is the government can directly contact the defense equipment seller in France, and then they could do that. But very rarely does it happen. Here you have intermediaries. So in India, there was an intermediary who was helping to purchase, Rafale aircrafts. And then in France also, there was another agency. So it's between these 2 agencies that they got the governments to come and operate. So that is where that whole accusation of kickbacks being paid and all those, issues that we had in the procurement process. So a lot of corruption was involved, right? So all those cases, that we've heard very much related to this. So in the B2B, so that your point is right. The government sometimes cannot directly connect with some of those agencies, because somewhere the government also has a vested interest. Government also, or the political players, the government in power does not look at a transparent buying. So they have certain, intermediaries or organizations which are supporting the government. They also want to make some good money using the government's purchase orders. So that's how they get involved. Even in the Bofors case, you would have known, an Italian businessman was involved, and that was a big controversy that went on for almost 20 years, right? The Gotrocci's case is very familiar. So they were purchasing from a company, and then you had this Italian businessman and his agency which was involved in the purchase. So he became the gatekeeper. He became the gatekeeper, and then his company was trying to convince and influence the entire purchase process. And then they said a huge kickback was paid, and then a portion of it was also shared by members in the government. So most of these corruption cases that you see in the 2G spectrum scam or the Commonwealth mismanagement cases, all of these are good examples where a lot of fraud takes place in the B2B. Yeah, so some more details I can give you. Once we know the Rafael instance a little more, I can give you that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If there are no questions, we'll call it a day. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you,